at some point you got to look at it and say, this isn't working, and move on. And you almost sacrificed this season by sticking with him being Watson, a couple extra games. Do you? I can't imagine you bring back everybody from and I'm talking about offensive staff. What do you think happens based on a team that you thought was going to certainly contend in the AFC, and they're not contending in the AFC? I mean, it's a great win, but I would imagine changes. There are some changes that occur.
Yeah, I mean, let's assume they go 6-11, right? Like, which
Yeah.
seems reasonable. Whatever, something like that. They miss a playoff. It's not really close. They don't go on any kind of crazy run to get in contention. I would think there's certainly changes, and I would think they could it should happen, would happen on the offensive side of the ball for the second straight year, just to try something new, just to you know maybe this staff didn't mesh like previous staffs. Again, it's hard. It's hard to judge. There's been other variables. I keep going back to the quarterback. We're going to take it out on Tommy Reese and Ken Dorsey because Deshaun Watson played poorly. I don't know if that's fair. Stefanski would have a better gauge of that, but I would think that they don't just keep status quo from a coaching staff or even organizationally if you have such a disappointing outcome to the season.
Yeah, it certainly makes sense. And the other thing is, when you look at some of the drafts, and again, I'm not advocating in any way that they move on from Andrew Berry, but Jedrick Wills, I mean, that's not working out, and I know you and I both defended him more than most. DeJuan Jones, I know they moved him to left tackle. I know he's a big guy, but man, he's regressed. Martin Emerson, I think the league has figured out you can get by Martin Emerson. There are some concerning things with guys that now JOK, I'll give him, he's been fantastic, but there are some concerning things with guys that we thought were pretty good third, fourth round picks.
Yeah, I think all that's fair. The only caveat is when you're losing, everything looks bad, and when you win, you overlook guys who miss plays or guys who don't. I mean, Martin Emerson played great yesterday, but I think he played pretty good. But if they had lost, you'd go back and you'd point out Zay Flowers beating him here or whatever, right? That's just the nature of the beast. But when you go player by player on this roster, there's certainly a fair share of what I would call misses. And that falls on Andrew Berry and the personnel staff. And what you really have to consider if you're the Haslams is let's assume they're going to have a top whatever pick, top 5, top 10 pick, whatever that is. And you're trying to find the next guy at quarterback. Then it becomes, do you trust this group of talent evaluators to find that guy and to find the pieces around him, right? They haven't, maybe Cedric Tillman's, maybe he's a hit at receiver. Until the last few games, you would have said the Browns haven't drafted a receiver very good, right? Donovan Peoples-Jones would have been the best receiver they got, and he didn't even make it to his second contract. So, I think there are a lot of questions, and some of those will be answered over the remaining part of the season. Some won't. But, let's assume they miss the playoffs, then that's a huge letdown for this organization. And it will have the Haslams, I would assume, asking some difficult questions.
Yeah, you know what? As they should. There are a lot of expectations, and they didn't reach them.